Greetings, everyone. Anthony Russell here from Banners on the Wall. And, well, as summer is silly season in, well, every hockey, let alone British hockey, but it's nice sometimes to look at some things that are a little bit different, but ultimately, I think, relatively uniformly positive, which means I'm joined on the line by a man who is embarking on, I think probably ambitious is probably quite a good word to use for the project he is undertaking down in Cardiff Bay. I'm joined on the line by, I don't know what your title is at the Cardiff Canucks, but the man behind the vision, Trevor Hendrikx, joins me on the line. Trevor, thank you very much for giving up a portion of your evening to speak to me.
Yes, thanks for having me. I'm a bit of a jack of all trades at the moment, so yeah, lots of different hats.
Head everything currently, as it were.
Head everything.
Although, of course, actually, the piece of news, you are now no longer technically by yourself. You have at least one other player to join you on the ice. Veteran NIHL import Victor Langseth joined from the Bristol Pitbulls. He's been around for quite a while, quite an experienced guy at this level. Is it all starting to feel a bit real now? Obviously you put yourself on the roster. Not a massive surprise, I think, for a lot of people. But now there's somebody else there. Just how real is it feeling?
Oh, it's super cool. It's been an idea that myself and my business partner Gavin Thomas have had for a while, like I've said. And to see it all kind of coming to fruition is really exciting. We had our final trial Sunday last week, and that for me was kind of when it all started feeling real. It's just seeing, all the players together and the way they were together, the dynamics, and it was really cool. And then, to be able to put a couple signings out there as well, it really kind of, we got some nice momentum now, and things are feeling really good. So it's very exciting.
For people who aren't overly familiar with you, you like a lot of North American imports into the British game. You've played at all kinds of different levels. You've won championships. You played in the American Hockey League very briefly. A lot of time in the old Central Hockey League, in the ECHL. Amazingly, you played in Brown Lager, which is really, really surreal as somebody who lived in Germany to meet somebody who's a former Hearts of Falcon. Yep. Why Cardiff? Why Cardiff as a place to kind of set up home? I know most Cardiff people will be screaming at the screen about this, but for a lot of NIHL people, you'll be quite a new commodity. So why Cardiff as a place to kind of set yourself up in retirement?
Well, when I first moved to Cardiff, I think it was 2014, I came to play for the Devils. I kind of came as a single man, just, looking kind of the end of my career. I wanted to see a little bit of the world. And, I met my wife my first year, and, we were together for, a while. And then I moved to Glasgow and to France as well. And then finally finishing off in Germany. And, we traveled around the world together. And, when I finished my career, we just decided to settle in Cardiff. And, now we have a beautiful little family, 2 little kids, and a house. And, I didn't expect to have all this when I first came to Cardiff in 2014, but here we are.
When you hung up the skates, 2018, if memory serves me correctly, as to when you actually finally hung up the skates, what was the initial idea? Because this is quite a travel. Like, hockey players getting involved in hockey in one way, shape, or form, whether it's coaching a whole team, whether it's sort of skill-specific coaching, goalies becoming goalie coaches, of course. A hockey player to fall into hockey is not uncommon. A hockey player to completely set up a new team from scratch in a city 5 time zones away from where he grew up is a little different. When you finished that year in Germany, you said, "Right, that's it, we're done. It's time to settle down." This can't have been the plan. So what was the plan when you actually stopped playing?
Well, to be honest, that was a rough part of my life, really, to be honest, because hockey was my life, like most hockey players, and moving on and transitioning from that to something else is very difficult. Some people are able to do it very well, some people aren't, and a lot of people struggle with it. And I wasn't too sure what I was going to do, but I had decided before that season that was my last year. So I'd kind of been putting things together and trying to put some, pieces here and there of what I wanted to do. And, I sent out a whole bunch of resumes, and life really humbled me very quickly. I didn't really have much response back, and I kind of reevaluated what I was doing, and I kind of, you know, broke down what am I actually good at? What have I done my whole life? And it was hockey. So, you know, I kind of led with that foot, and you know, I started doing, you know, I used to work at hockey schools all summer long when I was in Canada, so that was kind of something I knew very well. And you know, I kind of thought, well, I could probably do that. So I, you know, I just I printed out a little flyer, and I went around my little town that I'm from and posted everywhere I could. And you know, I think I had 10 kids my first camp, and then that one finished, and everybody said, "When's the next one?" So I go on the ice rink and booked another one a few weeks later, and 20 kids came, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So you know, that kind of was something I kind of thought I would get into a little bit, but how successful it was kind of made me transition fully into it, and you know, has brought me to where I am today. And all these things are just kind of adding on top of each other. And you know, the Canucks has kind of grown from my my business that I have now. So,
yeah. So talk us through that initial thing. Like you say, you're not alone. You have a business partner involved in this with you. This isn't an idea that probably sort of jumps out of nowhere, because from the sort of the bits and pieces when you launched the Canucks, you guys see the Canucks as this team to kind of bridge a gap from junior hockey in this country into senior hockey, which I suppose from a Cardiff perspective, you see in quite a stark contrast, because with all due respect to the Cardiff Fire, who've been there before, that gap from being a junior devil to being a Cardiff Devil is relatively sizable. I think even the biggest advocates of the junior system in Britain would acknowledge that.
Yep.
Talk us through those opening stages. How does this idea kind of germinate and start to grow into something that actually we can take this forward?
Well, with if you're not familiar with the things that I have at the ice rink here in Cardiff, I mean, we've during COVID, the rink was closed, and I had this idea to you know, build a facility inside the rink, because there was 2 rooms that weren't really used. I think they had planned to build a gym or something in there, but I'm not really sure what happened. It never happened. So they were just kind of these spare rooms there. So I decided to, you know, build a little synthetic shooting area, and then a gym. And you know, we share the gym with the Cardiff Devils, and they use all the facilities as well. And you know, it's just a really cool setup to have all this in the rink. So having all that there, it started to get me thinking, like, well, you know, we can do a lot more with this. I mean, this is a really cool setup and very unique to this country, because I can't think of anywhere else that has something like that. So I kind of started exploring ideas of how, you know, how to do things, and you know, it just kind of snowballed into this sort of a thing. And you know, we tried to figure out how to do it a few times, and then I think we finally kind of hit the nail on the head this year, and we got a college involved, and we have our ice time every day, which is you know, very important. So it all just kind of fell together this year, and you know, we're very excited about it. And you know, like you mentioned, it's a lot to put together, but I think once it's up and running, it's going to be a really special thing.
Yeah, because it's not the first time we've seen something like this in British hockey. For people kind of unfamiliar, the Okanagan Hockey Academy setup that was in Swindon for some time, that kind of got, I think, probably scuppered by COVID, is probably the best way to kind of describe that. This is not specifically new, and of course, for people who kind of pay attention, a lot of British kids have kind of gone, you know, to Canada, to the United States, and have kind of done similar kind of things. Break down for people what this is going to look like if you are a 16, 17, 18-year-old hockey player who's looking for that next progression. What are they going to be getting out of the Canucks? Because this is not unheard of, but unusual for British hockey. Whereas actually back home in Canada, this is quite normal.
Yeah,
from what I can tell.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, another reason why this came about was a lot of the kids I've trained over here for 4 or 5 years. They're kind of getting to that, you know, 18-year-old age, and a lot of them have left for Canada because there's nothing here that really would challenge them. And that's the problem that I've seen firsthand is, you know, these kids want to develop and be better hockey players, but they're not getting enough training and quality training, and the facilities that they need to do that. So, you know, most of them go to Canada, and a lot of the guys you see, you know, in the elite league and stuff, that's what they've done. They've had to go somewhere else to get their training. And I kind of thought, well, why don't we keep the kids here? Why don't we keep the British kids here? If we can offer the same thing here, why not? So, I mean, for us, it's the way we're going to do it is we kind of think of it as a mini professional team. So, I mean, the way we're going to run it, the kids are going to train every morning first thing. A typical day for them would be show up, hit the gym at the rink, on the ice, maybe have a video session, like literally everything that a little professional team would do. Train on the ice, and then they're off to school or work, whatever it is that they have. But there's a lot for them to do. I don't really want them sitting around doing nothing. I want them to be working on themselves, whether that's hockey or school or whatever that is. So it's a pretty busy schedule for them, but I think they'll have time to do everything they need to do and develop as hockey players and people.
Is this a case? I'm a very big believer in the old adage of talent borrows, genius steals, and having come through sort of the things that you will have done through, and of course, former Peterborough Pete, of course, in the Ontario Hockey League, and OHL players coming through have that kind of joint bit of doing a lot of hockey, but also needing to do school at the same time. How much have you borrowed from what you did before? Because it's a bit of a moot thing to say. Canada and Britain are not exactly the same country in the way they do things. How much have you taken from your own experience, and how easy has that been to kind of adapt to what you're trying to do here?
Well, I mean, that is the biggest challenge, really, is taking that and fitting it into the system here and the way things work here, because there's different leagues, there's different rules. Like the junior system I grew up with, it was a 19 to 21-year-old league, whereas here it's much different. You can be 16, you can be 40, you can still play in the same league. That's a whole other topic, but it's been tough to figure out how to do this. I kind of toyed with the idea of an under 18 team and things like that, but I always came back to the same point: is where do they go after that? I can set up an under 18s team, but then what? They just go and they go back into the system that I don't think is working. So I thought if I can go up a little bit higher and really play at a higher level, we can really make some difference with these kids. So I think a lot of I've had good experiences, bad experiences. I've played lots of different places, lots of different coaches, and I've tried to take all the good from that and all the lessons I've learned and tried to put them in here. And that's kind of a big reason why I signed myself, because I think I can offer a lot on the ice as well as coaching. So I'm happy to share my knowledge and help these kids develop.
When you realized you were going back onto the ice yourself, what was your wife's reaction?
Well, funny enough, it was actually her idea, because we were just talking about the team the one day, and by no means had I had any intention to play initially, and she kind of just said, like, could you play in this league if you wanted to? And I said, well, yeah, I guess I could actually. So we kind of toy with the idea, and with having young children like I have, they never got to see me play when I was playing. So I kind of thought, it'd be cool to throw the skates on again and have the kids see me play. So I mean, that's obviously a bit of a factor, but it just kind of it came together. It seems to fit well, and I think it'll work really well.
Yeah. You mentioned a moment ago as well that you think the system isn't working, and I realize this is a really, really open-ended question. Why is it not working, Trevor? And 100 million people will have 100 million different answers as to why British hockey is not working, and they will tell you at length. But I'm interested as to why you think it's not, coming from an outsider's perspective who now pretty exclusively works within it.
Well, I mean, obviously it's a controversial topic, and I'll just say my opinion. It's just my opinion. What I've experienced, what I've seen. I see things about lower the import rules in the elite league and things like that, and I truly believe that the problem is not that. I think the problem is the product below is not good enough, and I don't think that those players are good enough to be up at that level. And I think it's down to just training. And I mean, like a perfect example would be there's I won't name names, but there's kids that I've coached, that kids that I've seen that they finish their junior hockey and then they go and they play for whatever team in whatever league, and maybe they train once a week, maybe they train twice a week. But you're asking that kid who probably has aspirations of playing in the elite league to play in the elite league, training twice a week. If you do anything twice a week, I mean, you're not going to get
great at it.
No, you'll get better, but I mean, to when you put it on a scale of you're challenging these elite league players, some who are ex-NHL players who have played hockey their whole life. I mean, you don't stand a chance. And that's kind of my view of it. So my whole ethos with this is I want to develop these kids and give them every opportunity they can to get up there, because I think when you're 18, 19, 20, you have a nice little window of, maybe you're going to school, maybe you're doing these things. You're not quite into real life yet. You don't have, maybe you don't have a family, maybe you don't have a job. You have a couple of years where you can really put everything into your hockey if that's what you want to do. Because I've seen it again with, kids who are 20, 21, they're really good players. They start and go play somewhere, they start working, and then maybe they have like they just slowly taper off because life happens, right? And that's fine. But I just think having a different approach and trying something different, might get different results. And that's kind of the whole point of what I'm doing, is to give the kids a better chance. And I'm hoping that will be the case. And if you look at, not that I'm a fan of the US, because I'm Canadian, we always hate each other, but their program is proven. That's what they do. They get the best kids together, they train every day, and they've been one of the top forces in hockey for a long time. So we're kind of mimic that a little bit here. And I think once it's seen, I think people will give it a bit more credit than maybe we're getting now.
You're not getting credit, you feel, for particularly at the moment, or are people just skeptical of the idea because it's something they don't understand?
Maybe I chose the wrong words there. I think it's such maybe a different idea, and there's a lot of maybe criticisms and questions and things like that, which I'm happy to answer and speak with. And another reason why I'm speaking with you today, I just wanted to explain what we're doing. But that's expected with whenever you do something a bit different or try something new. There will be things like that, and I embrace them. And it I think obviously it's going to be a process, and we're not going to get everything right the first time, but we're going to try our best. And there'll be things that we learn along the way, but the whole sort of mission and goal of this is coming from a good place, and we're really hoping that we can help produce the next GB kids, the next Mark Richardsons, the next because that team is getting older, and we need to get some really good players coming in to replace them. And this is kind of our effort at doing that.
I'll offer an interesting perspective, because this is something I've talked with people about. You mentioned about GB. Personally, I believe that, because you've mentioned about not lowering the import limit, I actually believe the Elite League needs to lower its import limit quite not drastically straight away. You couldn't drop it from 15 to 3 like you have in the national division. That would be catastrophic. Yep. I think, for its business model. But I think one of my issues with GB is that we have sent a team who are obviously very dedicated, highly professional, but we sent a team of grinders to an international competition. We had one elite scorer in Liam Kirk, who is going to go play for one of the premier franchises in European hockey. We need to free up spaces for those players who have a more high-end skill set to be able to have opportunities. Case in point, actually, today, you and I are speaking, it's the 30th of May, the Coventry Blaze have announced Brindley Caps as signing for 3 years, which is firstly a fantastic piece of business for Coventry. But that's a lad with a lot of high-end skill, scored a lot of goals last year. I think it was 43 goals in 29 league and playoff games last year in South 1. But actually, one of the things I think that British hockey has a bit of a tendency to do is to bring up talented British players and kind of stick them in, kind of box them into kind of third and fourth line roles and not really let them thrive too much. How can we go about? And that's where I think actually lowering the import level in the Elite League will help, because more ice time will give more opportunity to let those players who have those skill sets get ice time to do that.
Yeah, and I agree to that to an extent. I mean, I do think you could lower it a little bit, but then again, you're watering down the product to, I guess, bring up the other ones, and I think more can be done on the other end of things as far as developing the kids, because a lot of things I see a lot of kids who they're in a rush to get to National League or whatever, and they get there and they have the title of, oh, I play nationally, but they play 2 shifts, they play 3 shifts, and over the course of a season, playing 2-3 shifts, whether that's elite league, national league, whatever it is, your development just kind of stunts. And there's kids behind you who are playing and developing, and they end up passing you. And the story I told at my trial with the kids was when I was younger, I was drafted to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I was drafted there, and before that I was drafted to the Peterborough Petes. And when I was drafted in the second round, which was fairly high at that time. And a friend of mine from Ottawa named Mark Mathot, he's played in the NHL for, I think he had a 15-year career. pretty decent player, but he was drafted in I think the 6th round, the year I was drafted to Peterborough, same age as me. The next year I went and I played in Peterborough because I thought, hey, I want to play in the OHL and say I play in the OHL. I wasn't ready for it, but I went there and I probably sat out about 30 games as a healthy scratch. I didn't play at all. And when I did play, I played maybe 2-3 shifts. My friend Mark didn't go to the OHL that year. He stayed at home and he played a lower level, but played and developed. And following year, I go back to Peterborough. He goes back to London, and he's playing a really important role on a London Knights team that ended up winning the Memorial Cup. And I played a pretty decent role on my team as well, but we kind of just, I was above him, and then he showed up, and then he just passed me so far because he played and he developed. And it took me a while to get to that point of playing as much as he did. But the point is that he took the right route for him and actually developed, and it served him very well. So, I think that's a very important thing because, if you're not, whatever level you're playing, you need to be playing and developing. If you're sitting on the bench, you might as well go somewhere else because you're not going to get better. You only get better by playing, and that's kind of my ethos and what I think. And I think if you want to go and get the title, that's one thing. But if you're really serious about your development, you need to go where you're going to play and play the important minutes, not just play. You want to play the power plays, the penalty kills, and actually learn the important parts of the game.
Back on the Canucks, though, one of the things that kind of came out was the initial plan. All the stuff that was in the kind of the socials and the stuff that came out was a team into NIHL Division 1, which for the prospect that you were kind of putting across seemed pretty decent. It's been a bit of a subtle change into the fact everything else is Division 2.
Yep.
May I ask why?
That's a long story, but I've tried to do things the right way and go through the proper channels. And we didn't have any idea how you go about setting up a team. So obviously we spoke with the NIHL, and they had said to us that, well, if you wanted to put a team in that league, the Cardiff Fire are in Div 2 and there's nobody in Div 1. So, you're welcome to put a team in Div 1. And my understanding was that was fine. So that's, I put that out there on social media. Wouldn't have put it out there if I didn't think that was what was happening.
And you can state an intention without it being immediately coming to reality, of course.
Yeah, and we did state that in the video. I said we've proposed NIHL 1, and unfortunately there's some rules within the NIHL that I guess previously established teams get first refusal at moving up. So once we put that out there, the Cardiff Fire decided that they wanted to go to 1 as well. So they kind of trumped us, I guess, and they'll be in 1 and we'll be in 2. So it doesn't really change much for us. We're still doing it. It's just I had recruited a team for a Div 1 placement, so I kind of had to start over and recruit a different team because it's a different league and different players want different leagues. So it was a bit more work for me, but sometimes things like that happen. So it's just something we've just kind of shifted and adjusted to, and it's still going to be great. And I think it actually might work even better, to be honest. So we're excited about it.
Yeah. The prospect of a team that is training every day going into Division 2 South is quite interesting because, and with all due respect to it, Division 2 South is quite a wide tent in terms of its playing, and in terms of its quality. And that's not to disparage everybody. I'm the writer and interviewer. You're all better hockey players than me, as a few people will tell you quite readily. But there are some very good teams in South too. Guildford as league champions have been a been rolling on quite handily for years. Haringey, there's lots of exciting things happening in Haringey. Of course, they were due to step up this year and have chosen not to now, to stay in Div 2 to further kind of develop the organisation. Peterborough Phantoms 2 are very, very good. We don't know what's happening with the Basingstoke Buffalo at the moment, but there's some quality in that division. What research have you been doing to kind of, what scouting have you been doing to kind of see where you're going to land with this group that you've been recruiting?
Well, this is where my sort of thoughts are a bit different. I'm not overly concerned with that, to be honest. My focus is more on developing these kids. So I'm not really too concerned if we finish first or last, or where how that stuff works. I'm more focused on teaching these kids how to be professionals and how to move up and play at higher levels. And that's the goal. And that's the, if in 3-4 years, if I can see one of these players playing elite league or higher, then my job's been done. So, as far as the other teams, I'm not really too concerned with that sort of stuff. I mean, that'll all play out however it will. My focus is kind of more on the team and these kids that are coming and moving from, wherever they be coming from and changing their whole lives to come down for this opportunity. And I want to give them everything that I can to get where they want to go. So as far as the other teams and who's good, who's bad, and I'm not really too concerned with that, because I'm confident in our group that, with training every day and the people that I've chosen, that we're gonna be fine on that aspect. But more importantly, I'm just excited at the prospect of seeing where these kids can go.
So yeah, I mean, you kind of sort of touched on it actually as sort of my next question there. Yeah, what does success look like in sort of year one? But I assume it's getting to the end of the year and a happy group of kids who feel like they've got something out of it. Seems like a pretty barn door kind of answer to that question. What is your biggest fear then in that instance? You kind of touched on what success will look like. What is your biggest fear at the moment with this?
I don't know. I mean, it's a lot to organize. That's the toughest part, and every day is a new challenge. And I mean, once we get to the actual season, that's going to be the fun part. So I mean, fear-wise, I think it's just every day, what can go wrong, or what, what's happened today, or what we have to deal with today. And because at the end of the day, if you're dealing with 20-25 people who are moving from their home, and maybe they need to go to school, maybe they need accommodation. So it's 20 different people, 20 different conversations, and it's a lot to accommodate, because it's not like a typical, I guess, team where you would train once a week and you're probably living local and things. People are coming from distances away to do this. So it's it's just kind of, I guess, organizing all that, and once that's all done, I think it'll all be just excitement really for me. And to be honest, I haven't really thought about anything negative going forward. I'm trying to stay as positive as I can. So
yeah, I think it's a good attitude to have. I think probably I come at this from firstly having worked in the NHS for the better part of a decade and a half, so I'm used to things kind of falling apart at a moment's notice. But I'm always interested as to how people as individuals kind of approach these things, because like you say, this is a massive project, and I think there's something to be said for how people acknowledge risk and the potential of things how they will approach those things that don't go in the way they envisage. You obviously can't go into things expecting everything to be perfect. I mean, it's British hockey for starters, but I always find it interesting to kind of see how people will kind of pull out what their sort of strategies are for mitigating those things that go wrong, how they will approach the fact that things are not going to turn out exactly as the way they plan it. You seem to be keeping quite a level head on your shoulders about something that's actually, let's be honest, this is pretty big. Like, this is some really impressive stuff that you guys are trying to put together down there. And you seem so calm as somebody who lives with quite a high level of nervous energy. It's quite interesting. It's interesting to watch from a distance. I can't lie.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's I guess it shows how much thought I've put into this. I mean, if this was something I didn't have any clue about what I was talking about, I may have a different sort of demeanor, but I've put a lot of time, a lot of effort into this. And when you speak of coping with things, and I've found like when you speak about hockey, everybody has an opinion. Everybody has this to tell you, that to tell you, don't go here, don't do that. And I don't really ask. I kind of just keep to myself, and I find if you ask too many questions, you get too many answers and too many opinions, and a lot of the time they don't align really with what I believe and what I think. So I'm trying to just go through it myself and form my own opinions about things, and just not focus too much on anybody else, just focus on us. And I think that's really the only way you can move forward with something like this. If you worry about everything else around you, you'll never go forward. You just got to worry about that next step in front of you, and take it day by day.
Do you think being an outsider in a sense to British hockey has actually helped you with that? Because obviously you live in Cardiff now, but you don't come with the baggage of being so ingrained in the system that you are weighed down, and you almost, obviously you're listening. You have to kind of listen. You have to kind of follow the rules. But actually, sometimes coming at things from the outside, kind of just, not that you're sort of kicking down every door and ignoring everything that anybody else has ever said, beforehand or tried beforehand, but you almost don't need to give the deference to it because you don't know it. It's not there. It's not the anchor in the background weighing you down.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, I think that is an advantage. I mean, I'm sure at some point it'll be a disadvantage, but for now, for this, it's great because, I'm a fresh slate, I guess. I haven't been crippled by the system, I guess, or whatever you want to say. But I'm going to try and stay like that as long as I can, because I think it's going to be a really, really, really good thing. And we think it's going to be great for the kids, and it's a big project, like you said, but we're slowly getting there, and it's going to be a really exciting season next year.
So let's talk practicalities then, because of course all this effort is going into the fact that these young men, and you, I'm sorry, you're not young anymore, you don't qualify.
Gave it away.
Yeah, but the practicalities are these kids are going to be playing hockey games. There's going to be Cardiff Canucks hitting the ice. Kind of what's the plan? Because it's obviously a very, very different model. Like you say, essentially kind of winning and losing isn't the greatest of kind of factors here. Are there going to be season tickets? What's the kind of plan for people kind of coming along and watching? You're not going to be playing at like 10 o'clock at night. It's not rec hockey. It's NIHL league hockey. So how are people going to be able to come and actually enjoy a Canucks game rather than what I'm probably going to have to do, which is wait for you to come to Gosport, which is like 45 minutes down the road from me. And I cannot wait for you to see Gosport, by the way.
That's one rink I haven't been to, but I've heard lots about it. Yeah.
Oh boy! It is going to be fun. Don't you worry about that. But yeah, what's the plan kind of going to be for? I assume it's quite low down your list of priorities. But what's game day going to look like for people who want to come and watch?
Well, one big thing that I want to implement is, I want the juniors in Cardiff to come to these games, and I want them to see what it should look like, what hockey should look like. And I want our team to be a good example for the next generation, because I've very carefully picked a lot of these players, obviously on their skill, but even more so on their character and the way they are as people. Because I want to have a good group of people, and I want to show the younger generation that this is what you should aspire to be. This is what hockey looks like. So for me, that's a big part of it. But we're obviously, that's a bit far ahead of us yet as far as those types of things. We're just focused on getting the team up for now. But we're going to run it very just like everybody else, and we're hoping to get as many fans as we can. And with us being tied in with the college, we'll have a strong support system from them, and I'm sure a lot of the students will come and watch, and it'll be exciting. It's exciting for me to think of who's going to come, and even just walking through the rink, I speak to people, and they mention about the team, and they say, "Oh, I can't wait to come watch," and it's exciting because it's a new thing, and it's new people, it's new teams, and a lot of these kids, they're local kids. They grew up in Cardiff, and people like to watch their local kids get better, and potentially, there's nothing better than not a better story than the local kid making it up to the Cardiff Devils, right? Like, that's the story everybody wants to see. So, that's kind of what we're going to do with it. But obviously, there's a lot of planning involved with that still. But yeah, it's going to be exciting.
are you stepping away from your skills coach role with the Cardiff Devils to do this full time, or is that going to continue as well?
So I haven't done that for a while. I just haven't had
It's
the
still
time.
listed as you being on there, by the way. Thank you, Elite Prospects, for not being up to date on that one.
Yeah. I mean, I try to help when I can, but with just the young kids and work and this, it's impossible to be everywhere at once. So I've kind of taken a bit of a step back with that, but this new project has taken up a lot of my time. So
yeah. I'll ask the question then, as a rarity of a player drafted into the NHL twice by the same organization, which does make you a very, very unique individual in that sense. Give us a tiny bit of insight into that, because obviously these things happen. It is not completely unusual for a player to be drafted twice.
Yeah,
being drafted twice by the same organization is a little bit different, though. Columbus really liked you as a kid.
yeah, it was. Well, it's a story I get asked all the time, and I'm happy to tell it.
Yeah.
But
sorry,
no, it's fine. It's probably the first thing everybody asks me, but it's a funny story because my trainer at the time, so my fitness trainer, he actually was the fitness guy for Columbus. And in my draft year, I didn't really think, it wasn't even on the radar for me thinking about being drafted. It was, it would have been cool, but I never really thought it was going to happen. So the weekend of the draft, my trainer called me and he said, Trevor, what are you doing this weekend? And I said, I don't know. I was going to go to a party, I guess, with my friends, like every 18-year-old does. And no, you're staying at home. You're staying at home because the Columbus Blue Jackets want to draft you. And I thought, oh, okay. So I stayed home and sat by the phone, never got a phone call. And the next day came and I thought, there's no chance they're gonna pick me. So I went out for a little bit, came back, and the next morning I was woken up by a phone call. And I was living with the Billet family at the time, and they passed me the phone. They said, oh, this is so-and-so from the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I thought, yeah, okay, sure. I thought it was one of my teammates pulling a prank on me. So I grabbed the phone and I hung up. And then 2 seconds later, the phone rings again. And I answered it, and he said, Trevor, this is Paul Castron from the Columbus Blue Jackets. We just drafted you in the seventh or the ninth round. And I think I don't know what I did. I couldn't believe it. And I just kind of said, I'm sorry. Thought it was a prank, but yeah, so they picked me and I was super excited about it, but I couldn't believe it. So that's why it was such a shock to me. So they picked me, and the way that the draft works is they hold your rights for 2 years. In that 2 years, they can offer you a contract. And if they don't, you have to go back into the draft. And if nobody picks you, you can become a free agent and you can go wherever you want. So the end of those 2 years came and they offered me a contract, and I was 19, 20, I must have been. And I had an agent at the time, and I didn't know anything about anything. I was a young kid. So I thought, well, I might as well listen to my agent. My agent said, don't sign that. We can probably get more money if you go back and be a free agent. And the team that I was playing for, Peterborough, we actually were favored to win the league that following season. So I had a good place to go back and play. And our thinking was, go back and have a really good season, and then, big things will come. So we said no. We said no, thank you, and appreciate the offer. And they weren't very happy about that. So I went back in the draft, and the goal was to not get picked, so we could be a free agent. And the very last pick they had, they said, we're picking you. You're not getting away from us. So they picked me again, and then the 2 years started over again. So they had my rights for 2 years, and at that point, I was, I guess, lucky looking back. They offered me the same contract, which I took, and signed a contract with them. And then I played in their minor system for 3 years, and that was that. But yeah, it's a bit of a funny story. And I think I was actually the last person to get drafted twice. Somebody told me that. So I don't know if it's true or not, but I had somebody tell me that.
We'll check that one and stick it in the YouTube description. It should also be said as well, that first time you got drafted, of course, do you remember off the top of your head who the 6th round selection of the Columbus Blue Jackets was the first time you got drafted?
Mark Thought.
It was indeed. Yes.
Yeah.
Throw that in. Get him name checked twice.
Yeah.
By some miracle, he watches this. As we kind of wind towards the end of kind of our conversation here, where give me the 5-year plan. Give us the 5-year vision of where this goes, because obviously there's a team that's been built. Names are starting to come out now. It's a real thing that's going to happen. Eventually, we're going to get you into the league. There's obviously the league meeting still needs to happen, but I can't really see too many people arguing against the Cardiff team in South 2, given they've just played a Cardiff team in South 2 for however many years. But give us the overview. Where are we going with this, Trevor?
Well, I mean, this is the start, and then this isn't some thing I just want to do, for a year or whatever. We want to, build this up and move up the leagues, and I'd like to keep the core, the group together and move up together if we could. But again, going back to my kind of ethos is I want to develop these kids, and if we develop them to the point where they're good enough they can go play somewhere else at a higher level, okay, great, see you later. I'm the happiest person for you. That's what I want. I want you to go somewhere else. So it might be a bit selfish of me to think to keep them together, but that is the plan. So it's kind of focusing on getting them up, and so it's a difficult one to really say. We have a plan, but if we're having players come to us and we're doing our job, they won't be. I don't want them to be with us for very long. So they'll be moving up. So, but we do want to move up leagues, and it'd be great to have a national program of some sort. But that, like you said, it's maybe 5 years away, whatever it may be. We're just focused on getting this season off the ground and making sure it's done the right way. And then we'll reassess next year and see where we're at and see where we can make improvements. And we said this we had a presentation at our trial. We said there's not really any blueprint for this. We can think of all the things that we think might come up, and there'll still be things that come up that we haven't prepared for. So it'd be nice if there was a blueprint for it, but there isn't. So we're doing our best to kind of navigate through things, and we're going to miss things. We're human beings, right? So things will happen, but we're doing a very good job so far, and hopefully we don't hit too many snags in the way. But yeah, it's something that we're going to our goal is to just always get better. Whether that's moving up leagues, or we're always going to be looking to get better, whatever that looks like.
So last question then, and I've deliberately saved it to the end because I know it's one of the few things that came out immediately as soon as the club was announced. Talk us through the name, because I think everybody is so used to anything in Cardiff being devil related, fire related. I mean, you may not be aware, but the precursor of the NIHL was the English National League, and the team in there at one stage was called the Cardiff Satans. Talk us through the name, because Cardiff Canucks got there was a lot of chatter in a lot of places about the name and the logo in the immediacy, because it was a little bit out there, I think, for some people.
Yeah, and that was kind of done by intention, really. I mean, I so many people have said different things. Why didn't you call it this? Why didn't you call it that? I think there was a team called the Cardiff Rage or something.
Yeah.
And all these things, and the problem with all these different names is there's things associated with them, good or bad, whatever they may be. And just like this is a fresh thing, I just wanted to have a fresh name, nothing attached to it. And the name, I just thought it up the one day. I thought, you know what, that sounds good. Canuck, Canadian. I've heard some interesting pronunciations of it though. Canuck, and the way it is pronounced is Canuck. So if anyone's listening, they're not sure, it's Canuck. But yeah, it was just just trying to be a little bit different and start something fresh, and kind of with no strings attached, and just kind of build our own sort of culture and build our own ethos and things like that. So yeah, it's I've had surprisingly quite a few questions about that, and what is a Canuck, and why the Canucks, and all this stuff, and it's just it's a choice I made, and I think it's obviously done its job.
And apparently you've got yourself on the logo there as well, of course, for people who haven't seen it yet. All the very best with this, Trevor. Like I say, it is a different endeavour for British hockey. It is not something that is of the norm. I'm genuinely interested to see what a team training 5 times a week is going to do in South too, given my experience of it. but we wish you all the best. Like I say, it's the opportunity to talk about something with anticipation in a good sense in British hockey is never a bad thing. All the very best for the year, and thanks for your time tonight.
Oh, cheers. Thank you.